Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that cuts through the complexity, taking deep dives into foundational doctrine and research to give you the insights you need, fast.
That's right, helping you master the operational environment.
Today, we're tackling something absolutely critical. It's the backbone of any military operation. Sustainment.
The art and science of keeping the force moving, supplied, and ready to fight.
Our guide for this is the Army's keystone publication, Field Manual 4.0, Sustainment Operations.
Yeah, this is the big one. It builds on Army Doctrine Publication 4.0 and lays out the groundwork for sustainment across, well, everything the Army does, from competition right through to armed conflict.
And the stakes, according to Field Manual 4.0 itself, are incredibly high now. It says sustainment is going to be more complex, way more demanding.
And much more visible to the enemy and vulnerable. That's the key word, vulnerable.
Exactly. So the mandate is clear. Sustainment has to be better synchronized, more spread out, more dispersed, and faster, more responsive than ever before.
And what's really fascinating right off the bat is how upfront this manual is about the changing character of war.
How so?
Well, it doesn't just theorize. It explicitly points to the ongoing Russo-Ukrainian conflict, saying it provides, and I'm quoting here, many critical insights that are already baked into this doctrine.
So it's learning from real-time, high-intensity conflict. That's immediate feedback.
It is. And the biggest lesson, you see it woven throughout, is that the old ways won't work against a peer adversary.
What old ways are we talking about?
Think massive fixed supply depots, those huge logistics footprints we used in the past. They're just giant targets now.
Right, especially with long-range fires and constant surveillance.
Precisely. So the doctrine immediately pivots. It emphasizes being dispersed, mobile, using smaller modular support packages. It's a fundamental shift away from those big static bases. That understanding really underpins everything else we'll talk about.
Okay, that context is crucial. The vulnerability driving the need for dispersion. Let's dig in then, starting with the basics. How does the Army actually define sustainment? What does it cover? So, Army Doctrine Publication 4.0 gives us the official definition. People often think logistics, but it's broader, isn't it?
Much broader. Sustainment is the provision of, okay, yes, logistics, but also financial management, personnel services, and health service support. All of it necessary to keep operations going until the mission's done.
So it's the whole package needed to keep the force in the fight.
Exactly. It's about making sure the troops are there, they have what they need, they're healthy, funded, and it involves pulling in help from joint partners, other agencies, even multinational allies, unified action partners, as the doctrine calls them.
That's a lot under one umbrella. Let's break down those four elements. Logistics first, that's the one most people think of.
Right. Logistics is definitely the core. It's everything to do with getting stuff, material where it needs to be. So supply, obviously, from bullets to beans to spare parts.
Maintenance, too. Keeping things running.
Absolutely. Maintenance is huge. Transportation, obviously trucks, ships, planes. Field services, which covers things like showers, laundry, even mortuary affairs.
Things you might not think about immediately.
And don't forget liquid logistics. Fuel, oil, water class 3, absolutely critical. I mean, the manual has whole appendices just on quartermaster, transportation, and ordnance ops. It's complex stuff.
Okay, element 2, financial management. This sounds a bit administrative.
Well, maybe, but it's essential. Think of it as the fuel for the whole operations economy. It's about executing budgets, managing the money, making sure there are controls so things are accountable.
And increasingly data-driven, I imagine.
Yes, using financial data analytics is becoming more important for managing risk. And think about opening a new theater. You need financial management for currency stabilization, for paying local contractors through operational contract support. It ensures the money is there right away to get things moving.
Makes sense.
Man.
Then personnel services. This feels like it's about the people.
It is, directly. It's about manning the force, keeping soldiers and their families ready, maintaining morale, upholding ethics. This covers human resources support, getting replacements in, tracking casualties, legal support, religious support. Even the Army bands fall under this.
Morale is a component of fighting power.
It absolutely is. If your people aren't managed, supported, and cared for, all the ammo in the world won't help.
And the last one, health service support.
This is Army medicine's role, promoting well-being, treating injuries and illnesses, conserving fighting strength. So direct patient care, Hospitals, medical evacuation, medevac, both air and ground.
Getting the wounded back quickly.
Critically important. Also, medical regulating, figuring out where casualties need to go for the right care. And medical logistics, which is its own challenge, especially for things like blood or specialized drugs. It's a whole layered system designed for continuous medical readiness.
So with these four massive complex elements, how do you ensure they all work together? There must be guiding principles.
There are 8 of them, in fact. And Army Doctrine Publication 101 reminds us doctrine is about how we think about operations. These 8 principles are the fundamental guidelines. They have to be synchronized. If one fails, the whole system is at risk.
Okay, let's walk through them. What's the first one?
Integration. This is the absolute foundation. Sustainment can't be separate. It has to be woven into everything else: maneuver, fires, intelligence, protection, command, and control, right from the start of planning.
Not just bolted on at the end.
Never. Then comes anticipation. This is about looking ahead. Leaders need to understand the mission, the concept of operations, so they can figure out what's needed before someone asks for it, before it becomes a crisis.
And that's changing now, isn't it, with data and predictive logistics?
Massively. Anticipation used to be more about experience, gut feeling maybe. Now there's enormous pressure, driven by data and potentially artificial intelligence, to predict needs much faster and more accurately. Because in modern warfare, reacting is often too slow.
So what happens when anticipation isn't enough or the enemy throws a wrench in the works?
That's where responsiveness comes in. Being able to provide support when and where it's needed, even if things go sideways. It demands flexibility.
And that links to another principle, right? Improvisation.
Exactly. Improvisation is the 8th principle, but it connects directly here. It's about adapting on the fly. When the plan breaks, when the bridge is down, you figure out another way using what you have, maybe using local materials to patch a road. It's about maintaining endurance through adaptation.
Okay, what else? We have principles about efficiency, too.
We do. Simplicity.
Yeah.
Keep plans and processes clear. Minimize confusion. This is vital when you're working with joint forces or allies who might do things differently.
Yeah, misunderstandings in logistics can be catastrophic.
Absolutely. And then economy. Using resources efficiently. Avoiding waste. Being disciplined about consumption, especially when supply lines are long and contested and resources aren't infinite.
Makes sense. And the last two seem related to staying power.
Yes. Survivability and continuity. Survivability is about protecting everything: people, equipment, supplies, while keeping essential functions running. It acknowledges that logistics units are targets now. Protection has to be built in.
And continuity.
Continuity is about ensuring that support never stops. Uninterrupted sustainment across the whole operation through all its phases. This relies on having backup plans, redundant systems, overlapping capabilities. You see how they all link together. You can't have continuity without survivability or responsiveness without anticipation.
They really are interdependent. And if you apply these principles correctly, Field Manual 40 says they achieve 3 big strategic goals for the commander. What are those?
Right, the 3 pillars, you could call them. They are freedom of action, extended operational reach, and prolonged endurance.
Freedom of action sounds like the core benefit.
It is. It means the commander can seize the initiative, maintain the pace of operations without being held back by logistics worries. Knowing you have the fuel, the ammo, the support you need lets you be bold.
And extended operational reach, that's about distance.
Distance and duration, yeah. It's how far and for how long a force can effectively operate. Good sustainment basically stretches the leash, connecting the troops back to the support base, wherever that might be.
Okay, and the third one, prolonged endurance. You mentioned this seems particularly emphasized now.
It really is. Prolonged endurance is the ability to keep going, to persevere over time throughout the entire operational area. It's about fighting not just for days, but potentially for weeks or months. Campaign quality, they call it.
And that relies heavily on
Principles like anticipation and improvisation, definitely economy too, but also, critically, on integrating the strategic industrial base, think United States Army Material Command, early in the planning. You need that connection to keep the supplies flowing for the long haul. Without endurance, even a successful attack just runs out of steam.
Okay, this is where it gets really challenging, right?
Yeah.
The doctor keeps coming back to large-scale combat operations, LSC operations, in this contested environment. What's so different about LSC?
Well, Army Doctrine Publication 30 defines LSC operations as these huge joint campaigns aiming for major objectives. And they're characterized by, frankly, intensity, destruction, and lots of casualties. Fast.
And the doctrine uses a stark phrase, war of material.
It does. And that's based on watching recent conflicts. It means we have to plan for consumption rates, especially ammunition, Class V that we haven't seen in decades, maybe double or triple normal usage during offensive pushes.
Wow, double or triple.
Yeah. And combat systems, tanks, vehicles, they'll get broken or destroyed much faster than we're used to. A brigade might suddenly need hundreds of pallets of ammo per day compared to maybe 100 total pallets normally.
And trying to deliver that volume when the enemy can shoot at your supply lines? That's the contested logistics environment.
That's exactly it. The fundamental shift is that sustainment commanders must assume their forces are always being watched, always potentially in contact, always contested. There's no safe rear area anymore.
Always. That sounds extreme.
It's the planning assumption now. Peer adversaries have advanced capabilities, air power, drones, space-based surveillance, cyber attacks. They can see our logistics nodes, our truck convoys. They can target them.
And it's not just kinetics, right? Cyber plays a big role.
Huge. They're constantly probing our logistics networks, trying to disrupt them. It could be hacking into supply databases or even using disinformation to confuse logistics personnel or disrupt morale. The threat is multi-domain.
So the fight isn't just at the front line. They're trying to stop us before we even get there, affecting force projection.
Absolutely. Right from the start, fort to port, moving troops and gear from their home bases to the ports in the United States. They'll try to disrupt that. We need to secure rail lines, protect cyber systems controlling movement, have alternate ports ready.
And then the journey across the ocean, port to port.
Those ships are targets too. Kinetic attacks, non-kinetic disruption. The adversary wants to delay us, disrupt us, break up our forces before they can concentrate in the theater. Sustainment forces literally have to fight their way in.
Okay, so if traditional, predictable supply lines are that vulnerable, how does the Army plan to cope? You mentioned technology earlier.
Right. The approach is twofold. First, reduce demand where possible, become more self-sufficient. Second, leverage technology through what the doctrine calls precision sustainment. And the engine for that is predictive logistics.
Predictive logistics. Sounds like anticipating needs, but supercharged with data.
That's the idea. It's a system using sensors on equipment, advanced communications, data analysis tools, visualization, pulling together all the logistics data that's generated constantly.
And using AI.
Explicitly, yes. Using artificial intelligence and machine learning to analyze that data, predict failures, forecast demands much more accurately, and hopefully much faster.
So instead of a unit reporting low fuel, the system predicts it based on usage rates and plans the resupply automatically.
Or even more granular. A sensor on a tank might detect vibrations indicating a part is likely to fail soon. The system flags it, checks inventory, maybe even triggers the shipment of the replacement part before it breaks. The goal is to resupply based on predicted need, sometimes without even a formal request.
That sounds powerful, but also complex. Doesn't relying on these intricate digital systems clash with the principle of simplicity, especially if communications are jammed or hacked in that contested environment?
You hit the nail on the head. That's the inherent tension, isn't it? The complexity needed for precision and survivability versus the need for simplicity when things go wrong.
So how does the doctrine square that circle?
It emphasizes having resilient information systems. Things like the Global Combat Support System Army, Integrated Personnel and Pay System Army, General Fund Enterprise Business System, they need to be protected, interoperable with joint and allied systems, robust.
But what if they do go down?
Then you revert. The doctrine is very clear. Soldiers must be trained and ready to use analog methods, paper reports, grease pencils on maps, runners, running estimates maintained manually. Technology is the preferred tool, but you absolutely need the low-tech backup plan. It's mandatory.
So high-tech aspiration, low-tech resilience. That reliance on information systems really underscores how logistics itself is now a primary target in the deep fight.
Exactly. And managing this high-speed, data-driven, yet resilient sustainment effort across the globe, well, it requires some very specialized organizations. They have to synchronize everything from the strategic level right down to the soldier in the foxhole.
Okay, let's talk about those organizations. Starting at the top, the strategic level. Who are the big players managing the global flow?
You've got three main strategic enablers. First, United States Transportation Command. Think of them as the global movers.
They handle getting everything from A to B.
Pretty much. They integrate and synchronize the actual deployment, movement, and redeployment of forces and supplies worldwide. They manage huge fleets of aircraft and ships, both military and commercial. And critically, the United States Transportation Commander is the single manager for all Department of Defense bulk fuel global Class 3 logistics. That's huge.
And their components handle the details.
Right. Like military sea lift command for ships and military surface deployment and distribution command for surface movement, ports, and distribution within theaters initially.
Okay, who's next?
The Defense Logistics Agency, or DLA, they're the Department of Defense's Combat Logistics Support Agency. They provide tons of common supplies, spare parts, food, fuel, medical supplies, uniforms. They manage huge stockpiles and work directly with industry.
So they're like the military's giant warehouse and procurement arm.
In a way, yes. And they're deeply involved in planning and can even deploy their own teams forward to provide direct support in a theater.
And a third strategic player.
That's the United States Army Material Command, or USAMC. They are the Army's link to the industrial base. They focus on ensuring the Army's equipment is ready, developing, acquiring, maintaining it throughout its life cycle.
So they manage the big weapon systems.
They do, through their life cycle management commands. They also handle things like ammunition production and storage, and they manage the Army's pre-positioned stocks around the world. They ensure the material is ready and can push maintenance capabilities forward into theater when needed.
Okay, so United States Transportation Command moves it, Defense Logistics Agency provides a lot of it, and United States Army Material Command ensures the Army's specific gear is ready and supported. How does that strategic support get funneled into an actual operational theater?
That's the job of the Theater Sustainment Command, or TSC. It's the senior Army sustainment headquarters within a theater assigned to the Army Service Component Command.
And what does the Theater Sustainment Command do specifically?
It manages all sustainment within that theater. It oversees the flow of forces and supplies coming in, handles distribution throughout the area, and plans the overall sustainment effort. Chapter 2 of Field Manual 4.0 lays out its 4 main jobs: theater opening, theater distribution, sustainment itself, and eventually theater closing.
So it has the big picture view for the entire theater.
Exactly. And often, working under the Theater Sustainment Command, you'll find an Expeditionary Sustainment Command, or ESC. The ESC is more focused on the immediate expeditionary needs. It provides command for joint logistics closer to the fight, synchronizing the operational level support for forces engaged in current operations, while the TSC maintains that broader, longer-term theater perspective.
What about specialized forces, like Army Special Operations Forces? They operate differently.
They do. For Army Special Operations Forces sustainment, the key thing to remember is that most special operations units have very little sustainment capability organically. They're designed to be light and fast.
So they rely on conventional forces.
Heavily, for anything beyond their basic needs. The main coordinating body is the 528th Sustainment Brigade, Special Operations, Airborne. They plan and synchronize the operational level logistics specifically for Army Special Operations Forces, working closely with the Theater Sustainment Command and aligning with the geographic combatant commands.
Okay, moving down the chain. What about at the corps and division level? How does support get pushed down to the brigades doing the fighting?
At the Corps level, you have the Corps Sustainment Command. It integrates and synchronizes all sustainment within the Corps area of operations.
And below that, for the divisions.
Each division has its own Division Sustainment Brigade, or DSB. This brigade is organic to the division and focuses solely on supporting that division's brigades and enabling units. It uses its own battalions, like the Division Sustainment Support Battalion, to provide that direct, tailored support. It's about ensuring that seamless flow from the theater level right down to the maneuver units.
Got it. Now, managing all these different units and their tasks, the doctrine talks specifically about command and support relationships. Why is getting those relationships right so critical?
Oh, it's absolutely fundamental, because ambiguity kills. If units don't know exactly who they work for or who they're supposed to support, you get chaos, inefficiency, or worse, units not getting what they need when they need it.
So clarity is key.
Total clarity. You need clear command relationships like operational control or tactical control, defining who gives orders, and equally clear support relationships, direct support, general support, reinforcing.
Can you quickly explain the difference between, say, direct support and general support?
Sure. If a truck company is put in direct support of a specific infantry brigade, that company basically works for the brigade commander. It goes where the brigade goes. Its missions are prioritized entirely by that brigade. It's responsive to that one unit.
Okay, and general support?
In general support, that same truck company would work for the Division Sustainment Brigade, or maybe the Corps Sustainment Command. It supports all units within a larger area based on priorities set by that higher headquarters. It's more efficient overall, maybe, but that infantry brigade might have to wait if someone else has a higher priority tasking for those trucks. Knowing the relationship dictates everything: tasking, priorities, positioning.
That makes sense. And there's one ultimate authority mentioned, directive authority for logistics.
Yes, Directive Authority for Logistics, or DFL, this is a big one. It's an authority held only by the combatant commander, the four-star general running the whole theater. The doctrine is emphatic. It cannot be delegated or transferred.
And what does it allow the combatant commander to do?
It lets the combatant commander issue directives directly to the different service components, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines within the theater, to optimize logistics resources. It's used to ensure everyone is working together efficiently, preventing redundancy, and making sure logistics supports the overall operational plan, overriding service-specific preferences if necessary. It's the ultimate tool for enforcing joint logistics discipline.
Okay, so we have the principles, the challenges of the contested environment, the organizations. Now let's see how sustainment adapts across that whole spectrum.
Sure.
The doctrine talks about the competition continuum, starting before conflict erupts. During competition below armed conflict, what's the focus then?
During competition below armed conflict, sustainment is all about setting the stage, shaping the environment for potential future operations. It's less about moving ammo and more about building relationships and infrastructure.
Like what kind of activities?
Building partnerships with regional allies. Negotiating host nation support agreements, basically. Prearranging access and support if we need to operate there later. A key tool here is acquisition cross-servicing agreements, or ACSAs.
What do those do?
They allow the U.S. military and eligible foreign militaries to exchange logistics support, supplies, and services. So, we might provide fuel to an ally during an exercise, and later they might let us use their port facilities. It builds interoperability and reduces the need for us to ship everything ourselves.
And this is also when you set up contracts for local support.
Absolutely. Developing operational contract support is crucial. Finding and vetting local contractors who can provide things like fuel, transportation, construction, labor. Having those contracts ready before a crisis means you can tap into local resources immediately, which is faster and often cheaper than bringing everything from home. It's about building that foundation.
There was a good example in the manual about the Pacific Pathways exercises really testing these ideas. What came out of that?
Pacific Pathways was a huge learning experience, especially for sustainment in the Indo-Pacific. It involved moving Army units across vast distances, setting up operations in multiple countries sequentially, doing that whole reception, staging, onward movement, and integration process repeatedly.
So what were the big challenges?
Well, first, the sheer tyranny of distance, as they call it. The Pacific is enormous. Moving heavy forces and sustaining them is incredibly difficult. Second, dealing with different customs regulations and procedures in each host nation that takes careful coordination. And third, it really highlighted challenges with operational contract support, particularly ensuring reliable access to things like fuel in more remote locations. It drove home the need for better planning, more dispersion, and increased self-sufficiency for units operating there.
Okay, so that's the preparation phase. What happens when things heat up, moving into crisis operations? Still short of full-blown war, but escalating.
Right. A crisis could be triggered by an adversary's actions or even a natural disaster. The key is, lethal force isn't the primary tool yet, but tensions are high, and forces need to respond quickly.
So sustainment has to be ready to move fast.
Very fast. This often involves executing pre-planned, flexible response options. And the lead organization here is usually the theater army. They're responsible for theater opening, getting the ports, airfields, and logistics nodes up and running, and managing that crucial reception, staging, onward movement, and integration, or RSOI process.
RSOI, getting the troops and equipment off the boat or plane and ready to fight.
Exactly. It's that whole sequence of receiving them, organizing them, making sure they have what they need, and then moving them forward to their assigned area. It's complex and ongoing.
The manual made a specific point about the Division Sustainment Brigade during RSOI. What was that?
Yes, this is critical. When a Division Sustainment Brigade arrives in theater during a crisis, it needs to be treated like any other tactical unit going through the RSOI process itself. It should not be used as part of the RSOI support structure.
Why not? Wouldn't its trucks and people be useful?
They would be, but its primary job is to support its own division once that division is ready to operate. If you siphon off the Division Sustainment Brigade's assets to help run the RSOI process for everyone else, then when its division needs fuel, ammo, and maintenance, the Division Sustainment Brigade won't have the capacity. The division would effectively arrive in theater already logistically strained. You have to protect its capability for its primary mission.
That's a really important distinction. Okay, now the most intense phase. armed conflict. Let's start with defensive operations. How does sustainment shift focus when you're on the defense?
In the defense, the priorities become continuity, responsiveness, and especially survivability. Because you have to assume the enemy is using long-range fires to target your logistics nodes, your supply routes, everything in your rear area.
So protecting the logistics is paramount.
Absolutely. The defense might give you a bit more time to prepare, though. You can improve defensive positions, maybe disperse supplies into smaller hidden caches, build redundancy into your distribution network.
What kinds of supplies are most critical in the defense?
You see a huge demand for Class 4 that's construction and barrier materials, for building obstacles, improving fighting positions, and of course, Class V ammunition. You need lots of it for defensive fires and for planning counterattacks. Sustainers need to push it forward, but also plan for distribution being disrupted, maybe only getting bulk water and critical ammo past a certain point.
The doctrine used the Pusan perimeter from the Korean War as an example here, didn't it?
It did, and it's a perfect illustration. In 1950, the survival of the entire United Nations force depended on holding the port of Kusan. It was the only port capable of handling the massive volume of supplies needed.
The logistical backbone.
Literally. The Pusan Logistical Command built its entire operation around that port and the rail lines running north. If the North Koreans had captured Pusan or cut those rail lines, the defense would have collapsed almost immediately from lack of supplies. Holding that logistical hub provided the continuity needed to allow the force to build up strength and eventually transition to the offense. It shows how critical logistics is, especially in a desperate defense.
Okay, so flipping that scenario, offensive operations. Now the focus is on speed, momentum. How does sustainment keep up?
Sustainment has to keep up, or the offense grinds to a halt. Failure to provide fuel, ammo, parts fast enough leads to a tactical pause, or worse, culmination the point where the force just can't advance anymore.
And how do you move supplies fast enough during an advance?
Motor transport trucks usually becomes the primary method because it's flexible. Roads might be damaged, rail lines might not go where you need them, or might be destroyed. Trucks can reroute, make multiple stops, push supplies right up to the forward units.
And the consumption rates we talked about earlier, they spike during the offense.
Dramatically, especially Class V ammunition. Double, triple the normal rates, easily. So sustainment can't wait for requests. It has to be proactive.
Oh.
Using techniques like combat-configured loads, pre-packing containers or pallets with the mix of supplies a specific unit likely needs for the next phase, and being ready to push supplies forward based on the operational plan and anticipated needs, especially if communications are bad. Predictive logistics is absolutely vital here to stay ahead of the demand curve.
And this leads to a critical piece of advice the sustainer gives the maneuver commander.
Yes, arguably the most critical piece. Advising on the limit of advance. This is the point on the map, or in time, where the attacking force, based on its speed and consumption rate, is projected to outrun its supply lines.
The point of culmination.
Exactly. The sustainer has to constantly calculate this limit based on how fast supplies can be pushed forward and advise the commander. Sir, if we continue at this pace, we can support you for another 72 hours, or roughly to this phase line. Beyond that, we risk culmination. It's a constant dialogue between maneuver and sustainment, balancing speed with endurance. It defines the operational reach possible at that moment. #outro.
Wow. Okay, this deep dive really drives home that modern sustainment, following Field Manual 4.0, is fundamentally about enabling endurance in a fight that's incredibly lethal and contested across all domains.
That's the heart of it. It's a fight for endurance. And success really depends on that seamless integration from the strategic giants like United States Transportation Command and United States Army Material Command providing the global reach.
All the way down to the division sustainment brigades and core sustainment commands, executing decentralized, resilient support right at the tactical edge, using things like predictive logistics, but ready to fall back on analog methods.
Exactly. The entire system has to be faster, smarter, more dispersed, and much, much harder to kill than the enemy trying to break it.
So, considering everything we've discussed, the threat from space and cyber-disrupting logistics, the insane consumption rates seen in modern large-scale combat, it leaves us with a really tough question for sustainment leaders, doesn't it? A final thought for you, our listeners, to wrestle with.
Yeah, the core dilemma seems to be this. How do you strike that incredibly difficult balance? The balance between dispersing your logistics assets enough to make them survivable against long-range precision attacks,
while simultaneously concentrating enough capability and maintaining enough efficiency to deliver the sheer volume of fuel, ammo, parts, and everything else needed to sustain prolonged endurance in high-intensity combat. Finding that sweet spot between survivability through dispersion and efficiency through concentration, that seems like it might just determine who wins the next major conflict.